Well, good morning, everybody. It's a little bit after 10 o'clock, and it is Thursday, March 2nd. This is IT in 10, and today we're going to be talking about the PMP application process. One of the most common questions we get here at the IT Sector Center relates to PMP because it's a lengthy exam and it's a lengthy process to qualify for it. Just a reminder, we've got everybody on mute here, so if you have any questions for me during the seminar, during the webinar, please use the GoToMeeting chat window. Important to bear in mind here as we get started that the PMP is recognized as a gold standard when it comes to project management credentials, and that is mostly because it is truly a credential that validates existing experience and doesn't create experience for you. In order to qualify for the PMP, you do have to meet certain guidelines even before applying. And just real quickly, it breaks down into two categories: a four-year degree, a college degree, 3 years or 36 months of non-overlapping project management experience, and we'll get into that in a minute what that means, and then 4,500 hours of leading and directing projects, or in the alternate, a secondary degree, a high school diploma, a 2-year credential, what have you, but then the experience requirements are higher. 60 months of non-overlapping project management experience, 7,500 hours leading and directing projects. Both of these, no matter what category you fall into, you do need to get at least 35 hours of education credits from a registered education provider. That's another key piece of this. You want to make sure that if you're looking at WIOA-funded training, that the training provider is registered with the Project Management Institute, that they are a registered education provider and thus eligible to provide the education necessary to qualify for the exam. The PMI actually breaks the application process down into 5 steps. The first one is filling out the application and submitting it to the Project Management Institute. Real easy to do. Head over to pmi.org, click Apply Now. There's a direct link right there. It's important to understand you don't need to be a member of PMI in order to do this. Anybody can go in and create an account. So it's great to have just to see if clients understand the requirements. They can go ahead and start filling out an application even in the absence of paying for a membership. And this is critical in particular when we talk about the eligibility worksheet. This is the heart of the application itself. You have to provide some basic contact information, and then you have to substantiate the hours and the number of months to make sure that you meet the experience requirement. So for each project that you're working on, you're going to need to provide the company name, your title and role within the organization, who your manager was or who your supervisor was. And there has to be contact information associated with that as well. This will become important later on when we talk about the fact that the Project Management Institute, the PMI, does audit some of these applications. Along with that, you'll have to give a short project description, and by short, the online application limits you to 550 characters total. That's just a medium-sized paragraph. And then for each of these projects, you have to talk about the number of hours that you spent in these various project phases. And these project phases here, initiating, planning, executing, controlling and monitoring, and closing, these are all from the PMI. When you take the PMP exam, the Project Management Professional exam, it's based on the PMI's own standards and guidelines that are contained in what's called the Project Management Body of Knowledge, the PMBOK. The Project Management Body of Knowledge breaks all projects down into these 5 individual phases. And when we're establishing eligibility for the PMI credential, you as an applicant, as a potential applicant, need to break your involvement in projects down to those 5 phases as well. Let's talk for a minute about there's an hours requirement and then this concept of overlapping months. What the Project Management Institute is trying to do is trying to avoid the double counting of months when it comes down to it at the end of the day. So I've just kind of laid out what we mean by this. Let's say you've had one project here that started in January, it ends in June, you spent 6 months on it, and you had 1,000 hours of project management time during those 6 months. And then concurrent with that, you worked on another project that started in March, ended in September, 7 months total, but only 500 hours. On the hours side, you can always total these up. That's a cumulative number. but what the PMI wants you not to do is to have overlapping months that are double counted. So somebody might look at this and say, well, it was 6 months on the first project, 7 months on the second project, that's 13 months total. And no, from the PMI's perspective, that's not the case. You're actually double counting the overlapping months when that happens. So your reportable total is the 13 less the 4 overlapping months, 9 months total. So when we say, hey, you need 36 months of non-overlapping project management experience, this is what we're talking about here. The hours are cumulative, but the months are not. And honestly, the application system, when you start filling out the application online on the PMI website, it's pretty straightforward. It won't actually let you have overlapping months. It'll do the calculation for you. So you've filled out all the information, you've broken it down into those 5 project phases, you've provided contact information, you click submit. Within 5 days of receipt, the PMI will review all applications for completeness, and if there's something missing, they're going to kick it back to you. Here you also have the opportunity to pay for the exam. If you're not a member of the Project Management Institute, the exam fee is $555. But if you look over to the left here, obviously the Project Management Institute wants to drive membership in their own organization, and it's actually cheaper for you to join the PMI and then get the exam fee at the member rate, $11 less. And hey, let's face it, as an applicant, it's actually also to your advantage to join the PMI as well. If you're serious about becoming a PMP, joining a trade group like the Project Management Institute is critical for success. You'll have the opportunity to interact and network with peers. When it comes to renewal of your project management professional certification, you have to attend a certain amount of hours of training over a 3-year period. The best way to do that is to actually be a member of PMI and find out where those training opportunities are. So a random number of applications are selected for audit. By experience, a small but not insignificant number, I would say, just based on my experience in various organizations, maybe 5 to 10%. They ping you at random for an audit, and really all you have to do at that point is go back to your application and substantiate the numbers you put down there, substantiate the experience, and they look for very specific things in this context. You'll need a copy of your diploma. So if you've said, hey, I'm a graduate of Michigan State University and therefore I'm eligible for the lower experience requirement, you have to produce a copy of your diploma. For each of the projects in the eligibility section, you'll need signatures from the supervisors and managers. So it's incumbent upon the applicant to do this. It's important to remember this. The PMI doesn't go back and ask these questions. The PMI will come back to you and say, hey, we're auditing your application, and within 90 days we want you to produce a copy of your diploma, signatures from the managers and the supervisors for the various projects that you've indicated on your application, and then the other piece, obviously, a certificate of completion for the PMP training that you've taken, so that way they can go back and validate that it was a registered education provider. And any competent, any reputable training provider should be able to produce that for you as well. You send all of those things to the PMI within 90 days of their request for an audit, and you'll certainly be good to go. So with that, the PMI will say, hey, now you're eligible to take the exam. You paid for everything. You have, within a 1-year period, you have 3 opportunities to pass the exam. The exam itself, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, 200 questions. It's 4 hours. It's not a small thing. Folks without project management experience, even folks with a lot of project management experience, rather, should plan on a fair amount of studying to pass the exam, and a fair amount of studying the individual phases and the various things that PMI considers are important. We go back to, this is from the PMI website. They break down the exam into the 5 categories of a project, and these percentages represent how much of the exam is based on those individual phases. 3 opportunities to pass the exam within a 1-year period, and bear in mind, if you fail the exam, you'll have to pay the exam fee again, so that the $400 some odd if you're a PMI member. If you fail the exam, it's not that you get 3 attempts on that same $400. You'll have to buy the exam voucher once again. Something to think about, whether you're a candidate for WIOA-funded PMP training or certainly a career counselor. The one thing I recommend when career counselors call in particular and ask the question, hey, is this person a good candidate for the PMP training? I always direct them to the PMI website and say, hey, have them fill out the application. They should be able to fill out the application and justify those hours prior to the approval of training. I know that there are some offices out there in the Chicagoland area that have kind of made this a mandate right now, that if you're interested in PMP training, hey, we want you to produce an application that justifies that you have the experience necessary to take the exam. You could even go as far as have them do the audit requirements if you'd like. And the PMI actually makes this fairly easy for you to do this. Go in, create an account, start your application. You have 90 days to complete the application once you've started it. So it's not like it disappears. You just log back in, and you can print the application at any stage prior to submittal to PMI. So it's very easy to tell a candidate, hey, go to the PMI website, fill out the application, and bring it to me at our next meeting, because I just want to make sure that you've got the requisite experience necessary for the credential. And like I said, you could even go as far as saying, hey, while we're at it, we want to make sure you'll be able to pass the audit as well. Hey, can you give me a copy of your diploma? Why don't you just collect the signatures from your supervisors and managers as well, so we know that you're ready to go for this exam. Just going to go through the questions window here. Margot, any data on pass rates? I don't have any hard data, and it's very difficult to pull out of the state system. I think the bigger challenge when it comes to the PMP credential isn't necessarily the pass rates. It's more making sure that the candidates are eligible to begin with. In my experience here in the WIOA system, I've seen a lot of folks who, look, you go and you look at job ads and they'll say, hey, project management professionals can make upwards of 6 figures a year. And that's a very easy sell to say, well, if I get my PMP, I'll be back on the job market, I'll be in demand, I'll be making good money. But what happens a lot of times is those folks don't qualify for the exam. They're unable to complete the application. Pass rates I can look into, but like I said, it's very difficult to draw data out of the system. Wraps up this episode of IT in 10. If there are no more questions, the next episode is actually going to be in a couple of weeks, right before St. Patrick's Day, Wednesday, March 15th. We've got a lot of potential topics in the queue here, but certainly if you have questions for future webinars, by all means, go ahead and email them to me at djacobs@nationallabel.org, and we'll get you in line for a future session. Beyond that, I wish everybody a great day. We'll have this posted on the National Label YouTube channel here within a couple hours. Have a great day, everybody.